this video is kind of a new one because with the amount of people that are getting into firearms, I wanted to throw my hat in this one a little bit. So, first thing we're going to cover is the 4 rules of firearm safety. Guns are always loaded. Know what's behind your target. Don't point your gun to anything you're not willing to shoot. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're going to shoot it. Okay? That's it. Now, there's a disclaimer before I get into this next part. None of the firearms I'm going to be showing you are loaded. I made sure of that before I started. There's a little bit of a setup process. You know that. Okay? I also have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. We're going to start with one of the most prolific firearms of the 20th century. Some of you heard that. Some of you who are watching this with people who know what they're doing know what that sound is. This is a 1911. It's called a 1911 because it is the model of 1911. Okay? As in the year 1911. Okay? As in more than 100 fucking years ago. Now, the 1911 has some very basic components. And I'm not breaking anything down. This isn't Forgotten Weapons. If you want to learn how to take it apart, I can do a video on that later. We're going to cover some real simple stuff. Now, first of all, we're going to start at the back and go forward. Back here, you have the back strap, beaver tail, safety. Meaning this here is a safety. If you are not holding the gun the way you're supposed to, the safety will not disengage. You cannot fire the weapon. Back here, we also have the hammer. When you pull the trigger, the hammer will go forward. It will detonate the round in the chamber. The gun will cycle, which means it'll kick out the old cartridge and bring in the new one. The hammer is reset each time the slide goes back. So it goes back like that. I'll show you. Okay? This is for the new people, so relax. Pull the trigger. Hammer goes forward. For the sake of argument, let's pretend there was a loaded round in here. Okay? The gun goes off. The slide comes back. Kicks out the old round. Goes back forward. Pushes the hammer back down. Trigger resets. You can shoot again. Now, you have your sights up top. Okay? You line the sights up. Now, again, I'm teaching you basics of firearms. I'm not teaching you basics of shooting. Okay? We can cover that later if you want. I don't know. Maybe. Who fucking cares? You have your sights up top. Line them up. Put the little one in the slot with the back big one. Okay? Barrel. Remember that part about not pointing this thing at shit you don't want to destroy. Now, this is an example. I'm telling you this is where it is. This is the action end. Okay? Now, frame-mounted safety. The frame-mounted safety is the second safety on a 1911. Without the frame-mounted safety, if it's off and you have the back strap pressed in, the gun will go off. If this is on, even if the back strap is pressed in, the gun won't go off. The slide won't even move. It's not going anywhere. Okay? So we'll just take that off. This guy right here is your slide stop. There's a little dent in the slide. There's a little nub that it fits into. That little nub, this will happen when your magazine is empty. And there it is. So, empty magazine. See, I just hit the slide release right there. So, you shot your gun a bunch of times. Your gun locks back like this. This means you're out of bullets. So, you take the old magazine and you press the magazine release button, which is this dude right here, little button. You press it. Kicks the old magazine out. Sometimes you might have to give it a little flick of the wrist, but that's stuff for a different day. Take a new magazine, which you pretend has bullets in it, push it up in there. Then, you have your slide stop, your slide release, whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something different. I don't know why. Press that down. The slide will pick up a new round and put it in the chamber. Now your gun's loaded again. And that is some pretty basic fundamentals of the 1911. Now, this guy is a subcompact, which means it's tiny. Okay? As you may or may not have noticed, because I had to do that again, it is absolutely itty-bitty in my goddamn bare paws. Little gun. This one's an ATI Titan. This was actually the first 1911 I ever bought. And these little dudes, this one is pretty fantastic. Everybody talks shit about every different gun company because this one didn't cost $18,000. Okay? Not really important. Do your research on the gun you want to buy first. Okay? I was like 20, 21, 22, maybe. When I bought this, you have to be 21 to buy a gun in Colorado. Buy a handgun in Colorado. Anyway, we covered the basics of the 1911. Okay? Actually, there's one more thing I want to cover. The 1911 is single action only. which means that the hammer has to be down. There has to be a round in the pipe, the barrel, the chamber, this thing right here, this guy up here, okay? There has to be a round in the pipe, and the hammer has to be back, or the gun won't go. Now, I'll show you the difference in that here in a second. So we have single action, where the hammer has to be back, and then the gun goes, okay? If there's a round in the chamber, and your hammer is up because someone told you to do that, which they shouldn't have, nothing happens, okay? And I'll show you the difference between single action and double action right now. This is an H&K 45C Tactical. I did a video on it. You can go look at that if you want to. Now, the H&K 45C is double action and single action, which means when you put a magazine in and you charge the weapon or load it, whatever you want to call it, okay? If you say charging it, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Anyway, the gun is in single action mode, which means you pull the trigger, the gun goes. Bang. Now, say you have it in single action mode, well, double action mode, where you put a round in the chamber and you hit this little lever right here all the way down. I'll show you. Now you're in single action only mode because the hammer's back. You press the manual decocker down. You're in double action mode, which means you can pull the trigger and move the hammer. The 1911 does not do that because the 1911 is single action only. SAO. The H&K is double action and single action. It's both of these things. Now, the H&K has some features that the 1911 does not, and the 1911 has features that the H&K does not. Like I said, the 1911 has this backstrap safety, the beaver tail, okay, because it's kind of shaped like a little beaver tail, okay? Actually, a friend of mine said that was kind of cute. They named, like, the gun part after, like, some cute little animal, which, I mean, I gotta say, yeah, that's kind of cute. I'm not gonna lie. Now, the H&K with this little flashlight here. See that? Yeah. Don't worry about that. It's for later. Pretend it's not there. Okay? The H&K has the manual decocker, which means if the hammer is back, you can press this down. The gun goes in double action only mode. Some people think it's safer to carry in double action only. It's really, as long as you got one in the pipe and you know what you're doing, it doesn't really make a difference. Okay? The trigger pull is going to be significantly longer because, as you can tell, when I pull the hammer back, the trigger moves. It moves a lot. I covered that in the video on this handgun. Okay? Now, you have the decocker and the safety. Okay? And you also have the slide release, the slide stop, whatever anybody else wants to call it, and the magazine release. All of these are in the same neighborhood and do the exact same thing. Except on the H&K, it's a little paddle you have to push down to release the magazine. But just like on the 1911, when you push that down, it'll kick the magazine out. Same thing, this guy does not have the beaver tail safety. Now, you can look at both of these guns. Beaver tail, no beaver tail. Simple as that. Now, as you saw, there's nothing on this side of the gun. Okay, there's no safety back here. There is a slide release, slide stop, whatever you want to call it. It's not really important. It's not. Don't focus on that kind of shit. As long as you know what the components of the gun are and what they do, whatever anybody else wants to call them is not really that important. You know what it does, you're comfortable with how it works, and you know what you're doing. That's the important part. Okay? Fucking figure the lingo out a different day. Okay? I call this a wacky boy because it's more fun, and I can watch people's fucking heads explode. Like, it's a fucking hammer. It's a hammer. No, it's a wacky boy. Whack stuff. Which is actually literally what it does. Now, as you saw, there's a safety on this side. There's not on this side. You can convert the H&K to left-handed, which means if you are left-handed, you can operate the safety and stuff, and the mag release, and the slide stop, and all that stuff. If you're left-handed. I'm not, so all my stuff is on the correct side of the gun. Now, there's something called ambidextrous, which means that on the left and the right side of the gun, you have all the same controls. Your safety's still here. This one has the manual decocker as well. This one's double action and single action, okay? This is the FNF and X45. This one's double stack. Pretty sure I covered what double stack and single stack are, but I can if you want me to. See this? This is a 1911 magazine. All of the bullets line up in a single stack, which means usually you're reduced to about 7, 8 rounds. That's the thing. Some people like carrying 1911s with only 7 rounds and one in the pipe, which is 7 plus 1. Or, because, you know, somebody's going to say it to you, and I might as well cover it now. This guy, the standard magazine capacity is 15 rounds. So, if you have 15 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber, you have 15 plus 1. So, if you say 16 rounds, someone's going to think like, oh, it has a 16 round capacity. That's weird. Like, why would it have 16? That's why people say things like 7 plus 1 or 15 plus 1, or in my case, 33 plus 1, because I have one of those. Don't know why, but it's awesome. And you could probably beat someone to death with it. So, the 1911, the H&K, and the F&X all have one thing in common. Well, a bunch of things in common, but this is the thing we're talking about. They're all hammer fired. Okay, which means you pull the trigger, the hammer goes forward, bang. Okay? All of these are things that you're going to see on just about every handgun ever. And I already know that someone did not pay attention to like the first 30 seconds of this fucking video where I said that I'm going over real basic stuff for the new guys and girls. Because I wanted to go over the basic shit. Okay? They gotta crawl before they can walk, and they gotta walk before they can run. That's the important part here. Now we'll get into that. Okay? Apparently I had to stop and explain that again. Because apparently we just can't have nice things. This is a Shadow Systems MR918. It is a Glock clone. It's more expensive than your typical Glock. This is based off the Glock 19, which is probably one of, if not the best carry gun to have ever existed. Standard takes standard Glock mags, Glock magazines. So if you buy one of these, you can go to whatever gun store and go, I need a Glock 19 magazine. And they'll go, oh, look, here you go. Done. Unless you live in the state of California where everything's illegal and closed down. Man, I can't wait for this shit to be over. Anyway, the Glock, as you can see, does not have a hammer. It's striker fired, which means that there's a firing pin in here that's under tension until you pull the trigger. When you pull the trigger, the striker is released, it goes forward, it hits the bullet, and the bullet explodes and goes and has a great time. Now, like we said, it has a magazine release, it has a slide release. It does not have an external safety. It has the one on the trigger, but I'm not the biggest fan of calling that a safety because most safeties are something that you have to make the conscious effort or train to make the unconscious effort to turn it off. This doesn't have one of those. Once your finger's on the trigger, you're good to go. Like, it's gonna go off. So, what did we learn? The 1911, which is a subcompact, which is itty bitty. This guy would be bigger, but I forgot to feed him a bunch of times when he was little, so he didn't get to grow up. That made me sad. Fuck. All right, anyway. Hammer fired. Single action only. Magazine fed. Because you feed it with a magazine. Okay? No one's really ever going to quiz you on any of this stuff. I'm just basically doing this so you can figure it out. Okay, so you got some of the lingo. You got some of this stuff figured out. Here we are. Magazine, gun. Magazine goes in gun. That's it. Ambidextrous. Controls on both sides. Okay? Hammer fired. Decocker. Safety. Magazine fed. Hammer fired. One-sided safety with a decocker. No backstrap safety. Only a frame-mounted one because it is mounted on the frame of the gun. Striker fired. No frame-mounted safety. But the slide release, the magazine release, all that stuff, every single one of these guns is in the exact same neighborhood. Okay? So you can pick up my FN and know where where the safety is, where the magazine release is, where the slide release is. And you're good to go on all levels with that guy. Or you can pick up my 1911. I just did that out of fucking, wow. You can pick up my 1911, the magazine release, the slide release, the frame mounted safety, and the backstrap safety, that beaver tail, all in the same neighborhood. Same with this guy. Same mostly for this guy. Except there's no frame mounted safety, there's no backstrap safety, there's no beaver tail. There's the trigger bar safety. Well, not the trigger bar safety. Fuck, that was an accident. Except for the trigger mounted safety. That's it. It's all the same stuff. You can go from one gun to another as long as you understand the basic fundamentals and operations of that gun, or of handguns, and you follow the 4 rules of firearm safety. There's nothing stopping you. Like, pick up any single one of these and rock and roll, because I taught you how every single one of them works. Put a magazine in, pull the slide back. Okay, this one has the front cocking serrations, which are these little nubbies up here, so you can do that, or you can do that. We'll get into that later. Not really important. Only thing you need to remember is back here. Charge the weapon. 1911 tells you where to do it. Ah, see that? Won't move with the frame mounted safety on. I taught you that. See? We learned something together. Every single one of them does the exact same thing. I'm actually slightly bummed out. All of them have a real satisfying thunk. Except for this guy. Kind of squeaks. Let's just do this one again. Yeah, see, that's kind of satisfying. Anyway. So, we covered all the basics. We covered all the shit that is the same across pretty much all of the platforms. The number one thing you need to remember is when you pick one of these up, look at it. And ask yourself, does it have a frame-mounted safety? Does it have a safety anywhere I can see one? But, you need to keep this not pointed at someone's face. Now, I know a lot of times that's really difficult to do when you go to Cabela's, you go to your local gun shop, you go to fucking Bass Pro, you go to wherever, and you ask to see the gun in the case, and a lot of times they just fucking here you go. Well, keep the fucking thing pointed to the floor. Because, again, I'm doing this on camera, so y'all see what I'm talking about. Keep this thing pointed at the floor. Even if it's unloaded, even if you know it's unloaded. Okay? Cabela's ain't going to hand you a loaded gun. And I'm not actually even comfortable saying that, because the amount of people who are just going nuts lately because of all this goddamn virus nonsense. Like, and I'm not saying the virus is nonsense. I'm saying the people experiencing it are nonsense. Because, like, fucking Christ, I love watching those videos of Karens freak out over masks, but man, it saps my faith in humanity so hard every single time. Anyway, look at your gun. Look at the gun you are thinking about buying. Look at it online. Look at reviews. Fucking leave a comment and ask me about one of these. I'll tell you everything you want to know about it. Even the shit I don't like. Even the stuff that other people don't like. Okay? A friend of mine calls this a cop gun. Because it's two-tone. Apparently that means it's a cop gun. Look at your gun. It's got safety there. Okay? Now you know where the safety is. Now the next part, and all the other parts of safety. Every single one of them, including that little switch right there, which I just showed you. All of this is reliant on you. Doesn't matter if this guy has a safety on it or not. If you're not acting safe, it's not going to be safe. That's the most important part to remember. Now, if someone comes up and goes, hey, check out this new gun I bought, and you don't know anything about it, you don't know how to operate it, ask. Tell them, like, hey, I don't know how to work this gun. Like, could you clear it? Could you show me that it's clear? Could you show me how to clear it? Like, could you do this stuff for me? Teach me how to use it. I guarantee any one of your friends who's like, hey, check out this new fucking gun I bought. If they don't do that for you, if they don't clear that weapon before they hand it to you, if they don't make that effort, I mean, seriously, it takes 2.5 seconds. okay? If I walked up to you and said, hey, check out my new gun, and I handed you a loaded gun, I'm not a good friend, okay? I'm not. Now, if I go, hey, man, check it out. Here's my empty new gun. And you pick it up and go, hey, like, how do I do this? I'm going to show you. But I just cleared it right in front of you. I didn't point it at you. But I know you can't, like, anything down here. You keep that shit down here. Anyway, not really important. Safety should be your number one priority at all times. Okay, 100% of the time. Now, we learned about the 1911. We learned what ambidextrous means. We learned what magazines are. We learned the differences that a lot of these guns have and a lot of the similarities they all share. We're done here.